be sure to go to flipsidegaming.com and use promo code 6 for 10% off on orders over $10. You can do the same at thegrizzlygentleman.com. Same promo code, essentially the same discount. What's up, Planeswalkers? Theorix6 here with some more Magic the Gathering news. And I felt that since I decided to share my rant about some of the issues that have been addressed here on YouTube, I was going to go ahead and make a response here. So this is the current state of the game for June 2020, and it does talk about a few things that I do talk about in my rant video. Now, for those of you who have read this, you might have a bit of a hint on how I feel about these things, but I figured since they do talk a little bit about some of the things that I addressed, I figured I'd go over this. For those of you who don't know, I will have a link for this article, I guess, in the description down below, but this is not like on schedule. I'm just uploading this. I guess I'll upload this same day. I was considering uploading it on Wednesday, so tomorrow, but I think this is something that is, since it's like news, I'll go ahead and upload it today. So first things first, Arena's coming to Mac OS, which is sure cool. I don't use Macs, but I do know a few people who want to get into the game, and currently they have to use a bunch of workarounds to be able to play it, since they are Mac people. It's weird that it's very weird that it just like comes out of essentially nowhere. Like, this seems like something that they would have an announcement for, considering recently-ish Wizards has been very high on announcements of announcements. So I am kind of surprised there. That said, it's coming. I believe it's coming at the same time as Core Set 2021. Yeah, so that's cool. That's good for people. You might be questioning why I have this over there. We'll get to that. So pack collation and reprints. So there's going to be a lot of returning places. We know this has been. I don't know why it crops like so far to the left, but whatever. So far on the left. Without further ado, here's our plan for some reprints. If you've collected a playset of a fully reprinted card, we'll be adjusting the rate at which you'll receive these cards and store boosters. We're defining full reprints, so this is how they're defining full reprints, as a card that shares both name and artwork of a card that already exists in Magic Arena. What this means is, if they printed a new art Fabled Passage, you would still be able to open it. I disagree with this definition. The main reason I disagree with this definition is because, generally speaking, when you're opening, and I have to kind of hedge my words here a little bit, because I do not have the full data, and I'm a single person, albeit one who does have a community that I try to listen to. I am still technically a single person, so you have to take this from my perspective, right? If you're opening cards on Arena, the goal is to get cards that you can play, not necessarily cards that look different. If you want a card that looks specifically different, you're more willing to, I think, use a wild card for that card. What that means is, if I already have a playset of Fabled Passage, I don't necessarily care if a new art of Fabled Passage comes out. If I really like that art, then instead of opening packs for it, if I really actually like that art and I want to play with it, I'm going to craft for it. So the idea that you can still be punished when new art comes out, I think that first paragraph, that first bullet misses the point of why that could be an issue. Okay, you will only receive a copy of full reprinted cards from a pack after you have received playsets of all other rares and mythic rares. The same thing we do with a card if it's banned or in standard, or if it's banned in standard. That's fine. That makes sense to me. You have the normal duplicate protection, which is, it kind of folds into this, where if I have 4 Casualties of War, I'm not going to see any more Casualties of War in War of the Spark packs. This is kind of similar to that, because now I have to wait until I exhaust all of the other cards until I get those cards. I guess let's use Throne of Eldraine, because it also has a Fires of Invention ban. So let's say I have, I don't have any Fires of Invention. And, of course, let's say I have no Fabled Passage from Throne of Eldraine, but I do have a full playset from M21, right? That means I have to exhaust all the other rares and mythics from Throne of Eldraine before I start seeing both Fires of Invention and the OG Fabled Passage, if I have for M21s. I think that's fine. I think that makes sense. After a bit, you're going to end up getting these cards. I think that's reasonable. I think the third one is like just a retreading of this, frankly. Yeah. The game will check against your entire collection. So if I own 3 copies of Fabled Passages from Throne and I open a 4th in Core Set 2021, the game will adjust the distribution rate of this card in both of the booster packs. That makes sense. The reason that makes sense is counter to what they're doing here. Right? The reason this makes sense is because what you want is a play set. You want to be able to play with these cards. You want a card, you want a set of these cards to play with. That makes sense here. You have 3 from one and 1 from the other. Good for you. You now have a playset. If you want to have the same icon on it, you'll have to buy that 4th one with a wild card, or wait until you've exhausted the rest of them. That makes sense to me. It might not. Other people might not agree and think that this is a poor way to do it, but that makes sense to me. But it does, in my opinion, run straight counter to this, because this is against the idea of having a play set of the cards, of the functional cards, not the art, because the art technically doesn't matter. This change does not impact limited boosters. That makes sense. Limited boosters aren't impacted by owning 4 of copies anyway. Makes sense. This change only applies to fully reprinted rares and mythic rares. We will not be adjusting the distribution rate of fully reprinted commons and uncommons. That is stupid and frankly an insult. Just because someone like me, who plays Magic Arena as essentially a job, right? I think the vast majority of the time that I'm playing Magic, I am either recording or I'm preparing to record. So the vast majority of the time, or I guess streaming, probably about 97% even, I am doing this as kind of a job. I'm able to afford to have like full play sets of all the commons and uncommons. That is not the case for everyone, right? Some people, a decent amount of people actually, it is difficult for them to actually craft commons and uncommons because they either don't play enough to get the sheer amount of extra things, or because they are wanting to try so many different decks and once again don't play an amount that allows them to be able to play those different decks, or frankly don't do as well as otherwise they would be able to have these things. So the fact that someone can still open a bunch of uncommons, I mean, with commons it is less of an issue. It's still, in my opinion, an issue because they're giving us things that we don't need. But for uncommons, it is still, in my opinion, a bit of a smack to the face. Maybe not a slap, but at the very least, it's a flick to the face. You know, you've instead of giving someone a slap, you're giving them a flick, and it's still rude. You know, we need playsets of the cards. We don't need 12 copies of the same card. If you want the other versions, maybe you like the symbol better. For example, maybe for whatever reason you really don't like Throne of Eldraine's symbol, and they're printing a different version of Opt, whatever, right? Then you might want to go ahead and craft those. But the fact that they're just refusing to change anything about the commons and uncommons, even if it were just like the same as like this, like we're just I guess this one technically, where like you just get every other common and uncommon until you've exhausted the non-full reprints. Even if they did that, like that would be bare minimum, and it would have been better than nothing, which is what they're giving us. They're telling us they're giving us nothing for commons and uncommons. Core Set 2021 is also available as Jumpstart, blah, blah, blah. Our goal with this change is to ensure that players who want to collect all the cards in a set still can. We can collect all of the cards using the wild cards, or waiting until we've exhausted the other cards that we're already getting. Why you refuse to do this for the commons and uncommons is baffling to me. While also allowing us to prioritize new cards over those that are effectively duplicate rares or mythics. They are effectively duplicate rares or mythics. In fact, you don't even have to have an effectively here. They're duplicate rares and mythics. Period. We in a playset don't need them. We don't need more than a playset technically. We're all in agreement that we should handle these kinds of reprints at a rare and mythic rare differently than others. Who's we? Who is we? While rares and mythics are arguably more important to protect against, that doesn't mean that commons and uncommons are unimportant, right? It doesn't mean that you can just, you should, that technically they can do whatever they want, but it doesn't mean that they should just decide, we'll still get them there with the commons and uncommons. It's fine. They're not going to complain about those because they're not as important. They're still important. Like, people still are using their common and uncommon wildcards, and they might not want to have extra copies of some of the uncommons here. You have to remember, in normal booster packs, we're getting more than 2 uncommons. On Arena, we're getting 2 uncommons per pack. That's only double the amount of rares. Like, that's not actually all that much compared to the uncommons in Paper Magic. So for uncommons at the very least, I completely disagree with this, and I don't know who they're saying we are. We didn't say anything before this because we wanted to ensure our solution was in place first. Now that we know these changes will go live on Thursday, we're happy to share this information with you. So essentially what this says to me, and I could be wrong, I could be reading into this incorrectly, but what this says to me is that they did not have a change in place. This tells me that they heard the feedback and were like, oh no, this is not good. I could be wrong, and they could have been working on this and just weren't sure that it was going to be ready by M21. Maybe they were going to do something later on. But what this says to me, at the very least, is that they didn't necessarily plan for this to be ready for M21. I'm not going to make a judgment on that, besides me pointing it out. Keep in mind that if a card is reprinted that features new artwork, we will not be adjusting distribution rate even if you've completed a playset of the previous version. All other duplicate protection rules apply, so if you complete a playset of a fully reprinted rare mythic rare card with the adjusted distribution rate, you will then receive gems according to its rarity. The only thing that matters here is this. If I have, at this point, let's say, Zendikar Rising, for some reason, let's say Zendikar Rising reprints Fabled Passage with new art. Let's say that they do that. Frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if they did. What do I need Fabled Passage 9 through 12? What do I need them for? I have Fabled Passage from Thorn of Eldraine. I have Fabled Passage from M21. I have a full set of all of those. What do I need those Fabled Passages for? If I love the art, I will craft them. Even if I love the art, if I choose not to craft them, I can still play with Fabled Passage while getting other new cards, other new rares that I otherwise wouldn't be getting if I'm opening these new Fabled Passages. This is a bandage at best. I appreciate that it's something, but I do not appreciate, I do not appreciate, and of course I haven't seen this yet, but I will not appreciate if this is Wizard of the Coast's final, shut up. Final solution for this problem. Because this is not a final solution. This is a bandage. All of the rarities should be treated the exact same. The fact that something has a new art should not matter because they inherently take away from being able to open other cards. I believe I have sufficiently spoken upon that. Now we'll get into Jumpstart. This will make sense in a second. Jumpstart play experience will be some sort of limited events, draft sealed using theme boosters, and will include 500 plus cards. Sure. In addition to Jumpstart theme boosters, only available as part of the event, individual cards can also be crafted using wild cards. Makes sense. This will include 37 cards that are new to both tabletop and digital Magic. We already knew that. All the cards included in Jumpstart will also be playable in Historic, which means over 300 new cards specifically for this format. They could have worded this differently, but whatever, it's fine. As such, we swapped 20 of the reprinted cards from tabletop product to play in Arena because of either power or gameplay concerns or technical restrictions. Yes, we've included the themed basic lands like the tabletop product. You'll find them within corresponding Jumpstart theme boosters, and as always, you'll only need one copy in your collection to use as many as you like across all decks. That's fantastic. Let's talk about these. So these are the swaps that they're doing. I have to scroll a certain way. Okay, so these are the swaps that they're doing. Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt. Both of these cards are too powerful for Historic. I am certain of that fact. They're replacing it with Lightning Strike and Lightning Strike. What kind of spit in the face of players who like Historic is this? in the face. I don't know if I'm speaking correctly, because once again, this essentially, spoiler alert, is another rant. Because while I like some things, I am annoyed by many. This is one of them. How hard was it to decide to put things that aren't this? One, we have this in Arena already, and two, these are the same cards replacing these. Okay, same cards. Now, I know that these are both from the Lightning Jumpstart or whatever, and they might have wanted to try and keep that together, keep the theme together. I don't care about your theme on Arena. Jumpstart in person, right? Jumpstart in paper, it makes sense to make sure those themes are correct. But when you think about what Jumpstart's goal is, maybe not their goal, but the goal of the players of Magic the Gathering Arena, the goal of Jumpstart is not to introduce Jumpstart, because Jumpstart's going to be that limited time event, will be around for a little while, and then the importance is historic. That's it. That is the end of the day importance of Jumpstart on Arena for Arena players, is historic gameplay. After, asterisk, after the whole event thing. Why could they have not done many other things? And the first one I'm going to talk about is the best one for that, because it still is about lightning. It doesn't say lightning on the card. I didn't know it needed to. Arc Trail would be a fantastic card to put into historic. One, because it's not awful. Two, because it doesn't already exist on there. And three, because it's an interesting design for the decks that technically these cards should be put in. Arc Trail, as a sorcery, deals 2 damage to target creature or player and 1 damage to another target creature or player. If you're a mono red player, you will likely not play this. That's fine. But you could, if you know that you're going to be coming up against a lot of, let's say, mono white life gain decks. Why is that? It's because this, even though it's a sorcery speed, can get rid of either 2 annoying creatures, say 2 creatures that would give lifelink, such as, or life gain, such as a Sarah Ascendant, or not Sarah Ascendant, whatever, the 1 mana lady who gains life whenever a creature enters the battlefield. Right, you can kill one of those, and then let's say Daxos is the only other creature on board at this point, you can kill a Daxos. Using this, you can kill a Healer's Hawk plus a Sarah Ascendant. Or you can deal 1 damage to your opponent's face, and then 2 damage to some sort of X2 creature that they have. And of course, this can hit any target. So let's say you've been able to hit their Ajani, their Planeswalker Ajani, for a little bit of damage. You can deal 2 damage to their Ajani and 1 damage to their face. This card fits the theme, is not already on Arena, and provides interesting play patterns that shouldn't be an issue for this card being templated. Maybe this would be too hard to template. I don't actually know. I can't think off the top of my head of any cards that do the same thing. But there's more. Brimstone Valley is not lightning. Also includes a keyword that isn't in Arena right now. But here's why I don't think that matters. One, as I already said, the fact that it doesn't fit theme only matters on Arena, where for Arena, this only matters for historic. Cool, these events will probably be fun. I, as someone who plays historic, I do not care, frankly. As for the morbid thing, we're getting phasing in M21 on a single card. I understand that it's a mythic, but this is not a normal booster product. Having a single morbid card does not matter. Is this card too good? I don't think so. It might be. But it's probably pretty fair as a 3-drop, considering the other 3-drops that the burn decks play are not really 3-drops. We have things like Wizard's Lightning, usually going to be 1 mana. We have Light of the Stage, usually going to be 1 mana. And Screw the Critics, usually going to be 1 mana. So I don't see that Brimstone Valley would be necessarily too good. Also, potentially, Burst Lightning. Holy crap! It's lightning. It's on theme. We already have Kicker from Dominaria on Historic. And this card, it's a better shock. Sure, it is a technically better shock. But do you know why that doesn't matter? We already have better shocks on Arena. We have slightly better, I'm not going to say strictly, but we have better things on Arena. That's fine. But also, it's a Kicker 4. In order for this to become better than shock, you have to pay 5 mana for it. The mono red decks are likely not going to get to 5 mana because of the number of lands that they play. But if they do, having the ability to have some extra reach would be fine. I cannot, Brimstone Valley, sure. Maybe no. I cannot fathom why one of these wasn't replaced with Arc Trail and the other wasn't replaced with Burst Lightning. They are both on theme, they would both be new, and they would both be interesting cards to include in Historic, instead of giving us Lightning Strike and Lightning Strike, which we already have multiple printings of. Absolutely ridiculous. Firebolt is just another one that I thought would be kind of interesting. It's a sorcery, so it's not as good as Shock, but it does have flashback, so very similar to Burst Lightning. You have some extra stuff there. I thought it might be interesting. And then Riftbolt was my least likely inclusion. It's on theme. It would be new to Arena. It very well could be too good, right? This is the one that's it's kind of out there. But these two, that ain't shit. Even if you just wanted to essentially make sure that they cost 2, because for some reason having a 1-mana Burst Lightning is too good on Historic. It's not. I understand Searing Spear is not a lightning thing. At least give us the other version of Lightning Strike, so that if you want to, you can play essentially 8 copies of Lightning Strike. At least do that. It's kind of ridiculous. Lightning Serpent for Ball Lightning, I think I'm actually fine with. I think this is a pretty good change. Ball Lightning, obviously super strong. For the same mana cost, you're only getting plus 2? Yeah, so you're only getting a 4/1 with Trample and Haste, which is much more fair. What's interesting is that this is a different version of counters. So, I mean, technically they have to introduce an entirely new counter type to the game, although, frankly, I don't suspect that that's too difficult. But I think Lightning Serpent is a good choice. It's very similar to Ball Lightning. It even fits the theme. I will respect Ball Lightning. Johnny's Chosen, Arcana Sun's Grace. This is another one. Anytime that this is just something that we already have in Arena, I'm just disgusted by the sheer disregard for changing up the Historic metagame at all. I will admit, this was not the easiest card to come up with a difference for. But I want you to know, I'm recording this as of right now. The second I'm saying this words, it's 4 p.m. my time. Okay, I saw this at what like 1 to 2 my time. I have not spent a lot of time thinking of all of these additional cards. Some quick Google searches, and some of them I knew off the dome. Burst Lightning, I was like, oh yeah, how is this not Burst Lightning, right? Celestialization, I did have to search for, and it was kind of like one of the only cards, but still, 5 mana 3/3 flyer. When you cast an enchantment spell, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. One, absolutely not busted. There's no way in hell a 5 mana 3/3 that you have to then cast more things and have more creatures in the field. There's no way that's busted in Historic. And it just works with the enchantment shit. It even works with Arcana of Sun's Grace. You Arcana of Sun's Grace, Celestial Ancient. The following turn, you cast an enchantment, and hell, it doesn't even work very well because Constellation has to have it ETB. So you would get the freaking +1 until before you get the Pegasus. So still, I cannot fathom why they decided to just give us the Arcana of Sun's Grace again when they could have just done this. No idea. It's a little insulting. Sarah's Guardian for Angelic Arbiter. Angelic Arbiter does something interesting. Sarah's Guardian doesn't, and we already have it on Arena. I just chose essentially a random rare mono white angel. I didn't choose a mythic. I didn't choose something that was super involved and interesting because I wanted to make sure that the coding wasn't an issue. Aegis Angel, it's just different. Do I think it would be played? Maybe. Do I think it's good? No. It's a 6 mana 5/5 angel that happens to give something that you control indestructible as long as you control it. That doesn't seem too strong to me. It's not an Arena right now. Couldn't even have just given us that. Oh, right. Then I was like, well, see other red. So then we have Draconic Roar, Scorching Dragonfire. Look, you could also just have, freaking Searing Spear in this. It doesn't say dragon on it. You could have Brimstone Valley in this. Brimstone, volcanic, kind of dragony. Sure. Maybe even Firebolt. Sure. It's not the best for Draconic Roar, but don't give us something that we're getting, that we already have from Throne, that we're getting again in M21. Just no respect. Goblin Lore, Goblin Oriflame. This one I just kind of accepted. These cards obviously aren't similar in what they do. because Goblin Lore is more about getting things into your graveyard from your hand, and Aura Flame is more of an aggressive card, so they definitely play differently. But for this one, I didn't think I was going to be able to, so I didn't actually search at all for this card, for a replacement for this card, but I didn't think I'd be able to find something that is close enough, like justifiable, similar in terms of the whole Goblin aesthetic, while also being reasonable to implement and still having a similar thing. So I thought this is fine, I guess. This one I was surprised by, because I feel like this might be stronger. It's stronger in a different way. So Flametongue Kavu deals 4 damage to target creature, right? This doesn't even get to go face. This hits a creature. This, at the very most, gets rid of a blocker, right? Or an attacker, I guess. But then you have Fanatic of Mogus. It deals damage to each opponent equal to your devotion to red. Now, that might seem not amazing, but if you consider the fact that mono red, like, is already still, like, it still has good cards that have multiple red pips. I mean, we're talking about Torbrand, we're talking about Chain Whirler, things like that. Couple that with the fact that this does not target, so your opponent giving himself hexproof in some way does not care. I frankly am surprised that this is the choice. Now, for what it's worth, if I still have no idea why Flametongue Kavu is not okay. Legit, I have no idea. Maybe it's because it has to choose a creature. I can't believe I'm saying this. I bet that's why. I bet the reason that Flametongue Kavu, I don't think it's too strong. I bet the reason that Flametongue Kavu isn't going to be put onto Arena is entirely because you have to choose a creature, and if Flametongue Kavu is the only creature, Flametongue Kavu kills itself. I'm willing to bet that that's the only reason. And Wizards essentially just doesn't want some people who don't read the card and don't realize what it does to feel bad. I now am 100% certain that that is the reason. That's a stupid reason. As a stupid reason, you read the card, you learn. You can learn. On Arena, they even have the ability, if you cast a Flametongue Kavu, just like if you cast a duplicate Planeswalker, they can pause the game and say, are you sure you want to do this? There are no other creatures on the battlefield, Flametongue Kavu will have to target itself. They could even do that. They do it for legendary creatures already, legendary permanents already. That said, Fanatic of Mogus was a good choice. I think that the reason for leaving, if I'm correct, I think the reason for leaving this off is a bit stupid, but I accept a replacement. Exhume is too strong. It just is. So Bond of Revival, we already had this card. Stop insulting me. Ever After. First of all, it's from Shadows of Innistrad. I want Shadows of Innistrad to be coming back soon anyway, but still. This card, it's 6 mana. You know, so it does cost a little bit more than where the am I? Than Bond of Revival. But it doesn't give haste. Although it does let you get 2 creatures from your graveyard to the battlefield. This seems fair to me. It does give you 2 creatures, but when you compare this essentially to Bond of Revival on the one hand and Command the Dreadhorde on the other, right? They're similar cards, except Bond of Revival gives something haste, which frankly is more important in my opinion than getting another creature. And then Command the Dreadhorde gets you as many things as you want, although you do have to pay life. I think the fact that Ever After is only for creatures and you can't give them haste, frankly, I think that it's fine. Like, Ever After would be a good choice, but that's not all. Unearth would be another interesting choice. We already have cycling decks. This is something that would be very unique because of the fact that it only can hit creatures with CMC 3 or less. We have something similar like that already. Would this be too strong? Possibly. Like, honestly, it might be. Because it is only 1 mana, and like you're getting potentially 3 mana worth of value, but at the same time, like, there are other cards that give you similar value rates, so Unearth would be fine. So I for what it's worth, I did put Ever After because technically speaking, I think Ever After is the safest of the reprints. Unearth is Zombify. Zombify might not be. Blood for Bones already sees play. It already exists. We also have access to Umbura rights. As I said when talking about this initially, I do think that 4 mana is around the right cost for total reanimation, right? Like, Unearth is not 4 mana, but it is very restricted. Zombify can get you anything, but it is 4 mana. And I think 4 mana is, like, the right spot for reanimation in Historic. And I feel like Zombify would be very played. I don't think it would be too much of an issue, though. And even so, like, there's other choices, in my opinion. Next, we go to Seer, which I still can't pronounce. They just give us Dryad Green Seer again. We already have this card. So I was like, Standard Wayfinder. For what it's worth, not a ton of things that work with this. I was considering, Arbor Elf, I think? And then Absence Pilgrim were like, those were 2 of the cards that I thought might have been interesting to put on Arena. But Standard Wayfinder, in my opinion, would have been something that does something very similar in that you're getting to put a land into your hand, but it also works with graveyard decks. So I might be biased because I like graveyard decks, but this is just another way of having another of the many 2-drops that already put a bunch of things in your graveyard anyway, right? So Standard Wayfinder, in my opinion, would have been a decent replacement for Dryad Greenseeker. We have another... Wait a minute. Oh, I skipped one. Wait, what? Okay, I don't know how this got all the way over here. This one was difficult. Up until now, I haven't informed you of this, but every card so far that I've looked for, I've made sure it's only the same color. So it's exactly the same color, so I've chosen that. And it's modern legal. So I chose not to look at any of the older cards. 1, because they might have issues with coding onto the game. And 2, because I wanted to keep things, a little fresh and whatnot. So we have Fascination instead of just giving us Gadwick again. I do not think that Fascination would see play. It's X blue. Each player draws X cards. Obviously speaking, that's not usually the best to give everyone the cards, or each player puts the top X cards of his or her library, of their library into their graveyard. I don't suspect that this would be broke. I don't recall this being broke in Standard. And it would be something that isn't fucking Gadwick, that we already have in the game. Also, it like makes more sense in terms of like, read the runes, you have like Fascination, blah blah blah. Whatever. Audacious Thief. Yeah. So Audacious Thief I was like, okay, I don't know how to work this, because Mausoleum Turnkey specifically gets you back something from your graveyard, but it affects your opponent as well. So it's like, okay, how can I work around that? And it took me a little while to think of this card, but I think Grave Exchange would have been an interesting way to do it. Do I think it would have been played? Hell no. This card puts a card from your graveyard to your hand, not into play. Not great. But it does something interesting. It does something different, and it doesn't just say, oh, we're just going to replace it with Audacious Thief because we can. Fucking ridiculous. Grave Exchange seems like a reasonable swap. Because Grave, Mausoleum, sure, let's do it. It affects the opponent. It affects a card from your graveyard to your hand. Seems fine to me. Banishing Light. This is just offensive. For what it's worth, it was very hard for me to come up with something that I thought would be playable, but not broken as fuck. So instead of Banishing Light, I figured Crib Swap. The issue with Crib Swap is that it's tribal. I don't think it matters. It might in terms of the game, the game engine. So I was like, the whole Changeling thing. I figured, like, this, of all of the cards, this one might be actually difficult to code. But it does just exile a creature at instant speed, and it even gives them something in return. But it's 3 mana, so it seems fair. If that's unfair, Declaration in Stone is a sorcery. It does get rid of anything that has the same name. Cough, cough, hits Field of the Dead tokens, which are still fucking good in Historic. Cough. Sorry, it's been raining hard. I was trying to see if the rain stopped. And the player investigates for each non-token exile this way. It's sorcery speed, it costs 2 mana, and it allows them to investigate if you didn't hit a bunch of zombie token nonsense. I do not see how this would not be fair. Would it be good? Yes. Would it be playable? Yes. Would it be OP as... No, it would not. It is a sorcery speed card at 2 mana that exiles a creature and gives your opponent some stuff. The number of times where you're going to get, 2 creatures, relatively slim. The number of times you're going to get 3 creatures, super slim. I should say non-token creatures. You're going to be able to hit token creatures pretty reliably. But we have things like Legion's End already, except that's black. Anyway, Declaration in Stone, it's even from a recent-ish set. So, I talked about Fascination. Doom Necromancer, I thought was fine. So, Reanimate, too strong. Doom Necromancer, that seems fine. 3 mana, 2/2. You sacrifice it, return a creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You can do this at instant speed, which is cool. Yeah, I think this is totally fine. Mostly because you can do this at instant speed. There's like, I'm just gonna sit here with my Doom Necromancer waiting on my opponent to pick up. This seems reasonable. Rix's Study was another one that was kind of difficult. The fact that they're just like, we'll just put this in this place. No, that's stupid. So this is just a card I've advocated for a while, Secrets of the Dead. I just think it'd be cool to have. It's another enchantment that draws you cards at 3 mana, except this one forces you to play certain deck style, right? Like, instead of forcing your opponent to play around what you're doing, you get to say, I'm going to choose to play a graveyard deck. I have Flashback and Jumpstart and all these cool things, so I'm just going to play Secrets of the Dead and get a little bit of value here and there, instead of giving us this again. Another one that I think they did a pretty decent job on. I would prefer to see Grave Titan, although Grave Titan might be too strong. I don't actually know. Shield Dread into Carnifex Demon. I think that's kind of fine. Carnifex Demon is, a big beefy dude, but he's not as beefy when he comes out because he has 2 -1 counters on him. But you can remove 1/1 counters, and you can put 1/1 counters on a bunch of things. I think Carnifex Demon is fine. I think Carnifex Demon is a pretty decent choice. There are other, for what it's worth, there are other demons that I would have liked instead, but frankly speaking, this is sufficient. Scourge of Neltoth into Wolfstrider. Fun fact, I'm insulted because we already have Wolfstrider. How many 3 mana cards do we have that can sacrifice other things for free? Many. I have not even listed all of the choices, and that's not even getting into the cards that cost 2 mana or 1 mana that have free sack lists. Big shout out, huge shout out to Carrion Feeder. Best card. Would it be too strong in Arena? Absolutely. At least as of right now, because a 1 mana free sack outlet is definitely different than a 3 mana one. Blood Baron is a creepy little girl. You sack it and it gets bigger. It's essentially an Nantuku Husk, except it's a vampire, which means it can be played specifically in Vampire Aristocrats, which is already kind of a thing. Give it Blood Baron, it gets a little bit better, but it's not OP. It just has more synergy. Wolfstrider can be played in Vamp Aristocrats. Blood Baron's a little bit cooler. Speaking, I don't think I put Nantuku Husk on here. No, Nantuku Husk is a zombie insect. It can be played in Zombie Aristocrats. You already have the dude who cares about creatures entering the Zombie Knight. I never remember his name. I really should learn it. But then boom, you can put some more spins on it. Whatever. You also have Bloodfall Connoisseur. If you want your benefit to be a little bit more permanent, but there are slower increases, bada bing, bada boom, you have Bloodfall Connoisseur. Very similar, blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, we have Yay&Nay, who was already in a set on Arena, and she had no problems. Was she decent? Yes. Was she OP? No. Yay&Nay. It's Yay&Nay. She's even legendary, so you can only have one of them. She's also a vampire, so she works with the vampires. This is insulting. Scrounging Bandar was another one that I was like, I don't know exactly what I should have here, but I was like, they decided to put Pollen Bright Druid, so I wanted to think of something that would be interesting. You'll notice a lot of my choices here are things where I thought they, I cared, for what it's worth, I cared a lot more about mechanics than flavor fit. I've already talked about that, I'm not going to talk about it again. I tried to think of something that was interesting, so I thought Plague Maw Beast might be cool. It is a pretty high cost card, but it's an interesting way to sacrifice a creature and proliferate in like a different type of Planeswalker deck where you want to be putting out a lot of tokens. So, you can think of things like 6 mana Vraska, where she makes her 2/2 pirates. You can also think of 6 mana Garruk, who makes wolves. 5 mana Vivian who makes beasts. Yeah, it's just things like that. I'm not going to go through all the planeswalkers right now who make tokens, but still. And then you have a way to sacrifice your creatures, proliferate, cool. Thought Scour was another one that was relatively difficult, but the point of Thought Scour, frankly, is to go through a lot of cards quickly. No, I don't think, for what it's worth, I don't know if Thought Scour would be OP in Historic. It might be, but at the same time, I've already talked about that on the previous rant video. If it's too strong, just ban the damn card. So I thought maybe Peak would be interesting. Obviously, it's not Gataxian Probe. There's no way that's coming to Arena. But you get to look at your opponent's hand and you draw. You cycle through the card, essentially, right? It's a cantrip. You get to look at your opponent's hand. It's not even all that strong, but if nothing else, you get to see what your opponent is planning on doing. If you're an annoying tempo deck, all of them are annoying, but still, if you're an annoying tempo deck, then you can go ahead and see, is the coast clear? Can I just full commit to my single Siren Storm Tamer and just play out my Tempest Djinn immediately instead of holding up this counterspell, right? So I think Peak would be a pretty decent addition instead of a card that we already have that does nothing similar to Thought Scour. I mean, okay, it does something similar to Thought Scour, except it costs 5 mana. Stop. Time to Feed, sure, mechanically speaking, they said it was difficult to do. They're trying to give us Prey Upon again. We already have Prey Upon. Give us something. Give us a different fight card that does something slightly different. We have Epic Confrontation. It's a sorcery, just like Prey Upon, except you get your creature a little bit of thing, and then you fight. So for an extra 1 mana, you're getting a slight boon to make your creature a little bit easier at not only surviving but killing. Cool. Then of course we have Pit Fight. It's just a Gruul card that just fights mofos. One in a red or one in a green. Target creature you control fights another target creature. It's instant. It is a little strong because it's instant. Oh no. We have other instant speed cards that do very similar, if not better things. Pit Fight instead of Prey Upon. So technically, you didn't see anything. Update to Brawl. So, okay. So that's my piece on this. Frankly, whenever they reprinted a card that we already have access to in Arena, I'm insulted because the function of Jumpstart on Arena, after the first few days of the event being active, is for Historic. And this, many of these, some of them are fine, is a smack in the face to people who care about Historic as a format. Update to Brawler's Guild Hall. I'm not going to read through this. Essentially, Brawler's Guild Hall is here to stay. Historic Brawl is something that they're going to keep their eye on, what exactly they'd like to do with that. Okay, now we're at Road to Rotation. I need a drink because I'm killing my voice with all these yelly things that I'm saying. Holy shit, this video's long. Okay. Events. Quick drafts and sealed will no longer be for sets rotating out of standard. Sure, that's fine. ICRs, very similar to how they've done it before, are going to become, they're going to rotate for standard. August 2020 changes. So it is currently end of June. We'll be in July for a little bit, and then we'll have August. New player decks will be updated because of rotation. Boosters Wildcard crafting. We have additional messaging in-game when purchasing a booster crafting a card from one of the rotating sets. Okay, that's something that we already have. This is something that essentially isn't even a bullet point. Like, this is something we already know. Frankly, this is something we should have already known, but this is fine. Whatever. Amonkhet Remastered. Oh hey, did this get your attention? We hope so. While strictly speaking, this has absolutely nothing to do with rotation. Since we're talking timelines, we figured we might as well slip this in. Amonkhet Remastered will be arriving in August. No date. No idea when. Not early August, not mid-August, not late August. We have no idea. So probably August 31st or some shit. Whatever. Adding an additional 300 plus cards to Historic. You're not adding cards to Historic. You're giving them back. Do not pretend this is anything other than giving us back the things that we've already had. I've been playing on Arena for a long time. I have played with Amonkhet cards and Kaladesh cards. Those were gone. Those were taken. You are not giving us new cards for Historic. You are returning things to us. For what it's worth, I should say, I am fine with having to re-get the Amonkhet and Kaladesh cards in terms of buying packs or using wild cards. What I'm not fine with is, one, how long it's taken to get them back to us, and two, the idea that it's somehow a nice thing to do to give us back the cards that we've already played with on Arena. Regardless, we're adding an additional 300 plus cards to Historic. 300 plus. That is nondescript, non-specific. There are 548 cards in Amonkhet block across Amonkhet and Hour of Devastation. So let's say we're taking the worst, because they could have said 400 plus. So we know, or we can at least assume, that it's not 400. I feel like a good PR team would also say almost or nearly 400 if it was closer to 400. So what I'm going to assume is that it's 300 and, let's say 48 cards to make it easy on me. Just a little bit under 350. So let's say 348 cards are coming back to Arena from Amonkhet. That is 200 cards, a full 200, that we are not going to get back. My assumption is that a decent number of these are going to be commons. So let's see. Rarity. Common. There are, I mean, this is including these, but there are 200 something commons. The issue with that is that many of these commons, I and other people want. Speaking of which, Anointer Priest. I want this card. Let's see. We're just going to scroll a little bit. Beneath the Sands I want back. This I want. Binding Mummy I definitely want back. Blur of Blades I definitely want back. Brute Strength is interesting. All of the cartouches I want back, because I think the cartouches are kind of cool. This is interesting. I'd like that back. I'd like both of those back. I'm technically already have this, so whatever. But yeah, you can see that several of these. Oh, I want all these back. How could I not? Hell, even this I want back because it's fucking different. This I want, like, all of these. So if I'm just scrolling past the first page and already I want half of them back, where are they taking? What are these 200 cards that we're not getting back? What are these? Seriously, like, I understand that. No, Frank, no, I don't understand. I don't understand, one, why we're not getting every single card back from Amonkhet block. It's already been programmed on Arena before. Even if they've migrated and they're not technically on the game anymore, why aren't we getting all of them back? Power level reasons? Ban the cards. If they're too good in Historic, that doesn't mean that they're going to be too good in Historic Brawl, where I can play with my friends with all of the busted cards for Historic from Amonkhet. Any card that is removed from Amonkhet block in Amonkhet Remastered has potential for making someone very sad. And you might be saying it's just a card game, blah, blah, blah. For example, I really enjoyed playing white-black zombies from Amonkhet. I have an entire playlist of me playing zombies in Amonkhet, and some of my favorite were with white-black zombies. I loved Binding Mummy in that deck, because you just tap shit down, and it's fun to hit people with zombies. If I don't get Binding Mummy back, I'm going to be upset. Now, of course, I'm a grown-ass man who isn't going to become furious at the fact that I'm not getting a specific card, but what I will become furious with is the fact that Wizards is essentially arbitrarily choosing not to just put all of the damn cards back. Why? I cannot fathom an actual reason. I cannot. Once again, I do not code. I would not assume that it's too difficult to migrate over code that you already have established. Even if you have to make some sort of tweaks, I would suspect that if we're going from one kind of rule set system to another rule set system, then the changes will all be uniform. But at the end of the day, what really pisses me off about this is because Wizards is just arbitrarily choosing which cards not to give us back when they've already shown in this area and in this area that they don't care about giving us chaff, that they don't care about making us get extra copies of things that we don't need. If you choose to do it, if you choose to give us nonsense, essentially, in the form of reprints and reprints, why can't we get to choose what isn't chaff from Amonkhet Remastered? Absolutely ridiculous. And the fact that we're in, like, near end of July, and we still don't even have any sort of information on how they're choosing the cards that they're choosing not to return is ridiculous. And if we get to a point where Wizard says, "Oh, with Amonkhet Remastered, we actually decided to give you all of the cards back." That is not a win for us. Either that was a PR thing where they were essentially fibbing to us, saying that we weren't going to give them all, so that they later can say that they were going to give them all. And I try not to be super cynical about things, but if the shoe fits, or hopefully all of us, including myself, continue to make enough of a ruckus that Wizards gives us the damn cards that we would like to play with, that have already been on Arena, that have already been in people's accounts, that have already been in people's hearts in the decks that they've played. Makes no sense that we can't even know what type of cards are being not being included. Then we go to... I'm not even fucking done, and we're nearly at an hour. Jeez. Standard rotation, sure. Rotation, I don't care. They're not changing the rotation, so I kind of don't care. Those things are going to rotate out. Standard 2021 will consist of the following sets. Blah blah blah. They're not changing rotation. I'm upset. Historic cards are rotating. Blah blah blah. Brawl commanders that were added to Brawl as part of the guild hall will no longer be leaving in standard Brawl. Makes sense. Renewal. I can't remember what they did last year because my memory is garbage, but if I recall correctly, this was fine. I will be interested in seeing if this is just as fine as it was last time, or if they do some annoying things. Deck builder improvements. Last but certainly not least, man, you remember when I was ranting about a deck builder? My concerns have not been assuaged. You can expect some quality of life improvements when it comes to deck building on MTGA. Did you know that the in-game search function supports advanced searching terms? Well, if you didn't, it does, and if you did know, you'll now have an easy way to reference that in-game. So you're saying that an error on your part, error being having people know that this exists, and I would, if you didn't know that the deck builder had all of these things, I'd like you to say that in the comments. The failure of letting people know, it's not necessarily something that, like this, oh, it's cheeky. Come on. It's dumb. Cool. Now we get to reference the things. Whoop-de-doo. As you can see, it's a robust system that allows you to set a lot of criteria beyond what's available using our advanced filters, though the two are compatible. So feel free to combine the two when looking at particular cards. This is not robust. I do not know who's lying to Wizards. I use Scryfall. Because I really like Scryfall. It has some issues in that there are definitely some things that I can't kind of search for. This is not nearly the same. This is not a robust system. It's helpful. It's better than nothing. Not a robust system. I do not know what kind of drugs you're doing. This part I'm curious about. We're also adding some fancy new tools for deck building in draft and sealed events. With this update, you'll have the ability to expand the amount of space used when viewing your deck in a horizontal layout, as well as quickly add cards by their color identity. Okay, you can do some expansion stuff, but right here what I've highlighted is very interesting to me. Why are you saying it can only be done in draft and sealed? People have been asking for this in their normal deck building for a long time, and you're saying that you're only going to give it to us in draft and sealed events? Like this, I keep saying it, but it feels like Wizards is listening to literally a quarter of what people want. And then, here, let me rephrase this because it sounds better. Wizards is listening to half of what people want, and then implementing a quarter, and then saying, "Oh, we've given you all of the things that you've desired." What the fuck, dude? Like, as I said in the OG rant video, Magic the Gathering is the best game on the planet. It is not handled the best. Cleanup step, I don't care. Frankly, I'm hoping that you have heard the amount of things that I am positive about. The fact that we're getting Brawl for free can't be unstated, or that we're getting Brawl for free always can't be understated. They did include some pretty cool additions, keyword being some. In fact, frankly, I think it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, about 5 of the 20 cards. A quarter ain't bad, I guess. And then like this nonsense, like I hope that it does come across that I'm glad about a few of the things here, but it also needs to come across that I'm not satisfied, and I'm willing to bet that many of you aren't satisfied. And once again, I don't want to come off as someone who's whining about the state of the game or whatnot, but I do want to come off as someone who is passionate about this game and want it to be the best it can be, and I recognize that they're just choosing to not. And what's really nice, so these are all things that I'm talking about for Arena, right? How they handle paper isn't as big of a deal with me for right now, just because in these current times, the digital scene is kind of where it's at. The fact that it's digital, though, means that they can reverse any issues that they have. I will mention, and I'm not going to name names, but I have seen some people talk on Twitter about, for cards in Historic, literally functionally eradicating the cards. I think that is a terrible idea. I do not think that the cards should change between paper and Arena. I do not think cards should function differently. They should be the same experience. The cards should be the same experience. I very much disagree with that. But this is a digital environment where you can replace cards, add cards. Well, I mean, technically those are the only things. I should have technically said you can add cards, remove cards, and swap cards. Would have rolled off a little bit better. But you can do that. You can say, man, this archetype is really like not doing great. For the next Historic Anthology, make sure we include this card, which will help just this deck. Or this deck is really outcompeting everyone else who wants to do a similar thing. So it's not OP, it's not like at the top of the charts, but it's the only deck doing what it's doing. Let's go ahead and nerf it by saying, okay, you can't play with this card for right now. We're going to suspend that card. Hopefully we're going to see some diversification. If we do, it's going to stay banned. If we don't, we'll give it back, but we might remove something else. If they added a bunch of the cards that I suggested, which frankly, I have no idea why they haven't, or why they chose not to do this. It took me moments to think of these cards. And obviously it comes with more needs than that, but still. If any of them proved problematic, a simple fix is just saying, oops, we made a mistake. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna say no to these, and we'll give you some wild cards. And you know what's great? Many of these are commons and uncommons. So giving us wild cards back for them, okay, many of them are rare, but still, giving us wild cards back for some of these it's not gonna break the proverbial bank. I've been talking for a little over an hour, or a little under an hour, sorry. I really want to see what you all think, because right now I feel like a madman talking into a Logitech camera about a game which many people would say I'm being a little bit too enthused about right now. So in order to either confirm or assuage my concerns with my just depleting insanity, not insanity, I really want to know what you think about any of these major three things. So when I say major three things, how do you feel about specifically the way that they're handling duplicates? How do you feel about my proposed inclusions and their inclusions for Jumpstart? And then, like, you can skip this, I don't fucking care. And then how do you feel about Amonkhet Remastered? Like, those are the main three things I care about as someone who plays Historic. And for what it's worth, I'm likely going to be ramping up the amount of Historic on the channel. Right now, I've changed the defaults on my descriptions about my schedule to kind of show that I'll be doing like standard and historic kind of depending based on the time. But I prefer historic. It is a format that I like better than standard. I'm still obviously going to play standard, and when a new set comes out, I'm going to be playing a lot more standard than I am historic. But at the end of the day, you know, the aggregate per year or the average per year will be heavily favored historic. So I'm just curious about those three things. Please let me know what you all think. Once again, sorry for the kind of negative tone, but I'd like to thank my lovely patrons for the continued support. If you'd like to join them and support the show, you'll find links to that down in the description below. I do, of course, I really hope you've enjoyed these kind of discussion videos that I've posted recently. If you do, go ahead and tap that like button, add a subscription to your mana pool, cast the comments in the comment section down below, pass the turn of the video to some of your friends. Until next time, all will be one, and hopefully, all will be better, because that's what we want.